In the quiet countryside of Devon, England, a gentle morning mist hung over the small cottages that dotted the landscape. Emma Thompson stood by her kitchen window, watching the world wake up. Her life had never been easy, but she had learned to find beauty in small moments. At 32, Emma was a single mother with a heart full of love and determination. Her son, Jack, a bright-eyed 8-year-old, sat at the kitchen table finishing his breakfast. The worn wooden chair creaked beneath him, a familiar sound that spoke of years of struggle and survival. The morning started like any other. Emma packed Jack's simple lunch, a sandwich, an apple, and a small note of encouragement she always slipped inside. Her part-time job at the local medical clinic meant early mornings and long days, but she never complained. Suddenly, something felt different. The electric kettle went silent mid-boil. The refrigerator's constant hum disappeared. Jack looked up, confusion spreading across his face. "Mum?" he asked, his voice trembling slightly. Emma moved to the light switch. Nothing. She checked her mobile phone. No signal, no power. The entire house had gone completely dark, save for the natural light filtering through the windows. Outside, a strange quiet descended. No sounds of cars, no distant hum of technology. The neighbors began to emerge from their homes, looking equally bewildered. Old Mr. Williams from the farm next door stood in his driveway, scratching his head and looking at the sky. "Something's not right," Emma muttered to herself. She remembered stories her grandmother used to tell, tales of hard times, of communities coming together when everything else fell apart. Those stories seemed more important now than ever. Jack's hand slipped into hers. "Are we going to be okay?" he asked, his eyes wide with a mixture of fear and trust. Emma knelt down, looking directly into her son's eyes. "We're going to be more than okay," she said firmly. "We're going to be strong. We're going to help each other." The street began to fill with people. Neighbors who had barely spoken before now started talking. Mrs. Peterson, from 2 doors down, brought out a basket of bread she had just baked. Mr. Roberts, the retired carpenter, began checking on the elderly residents. Emma's mind raced. She thought about the medical supplies at the clinic, the food they had at home, the skills she had learned over the years. Survival wasn't about technology. It was about people, about connection, about hope. Jack helped her gather candles, matches, and their most important supplies. They filled water bottles from the rain barrel outside. Emma remembered the vegetable seeds she had saved from last season. Now might be the time to plant them. As the day progressed, a strange sense of calm began to replace the initial panic. People shared what they had. Someone found an old battery-powered radio and gathered neighbors to listen for any information. Children played in the streets, their laughter a reminder of resilience. Emma watched Jack help Mr. Williams collect eggs from the chicken coop. The boy's determination was a beacon of hope. She realized that this moment, this unexpected challenge, was teaching them something valuable about human connection. The sun began to set, casting a warm orange glow over the village. Families gathered together, sharing meals, stories, and what little they had. Candlelight replaced electric lights, and the sound of conversation filled the air. As night fell, Emma tucked Jack into bed. Their small cottage was cool, but they were together. She told him stories of courage, of people who had survived impossible times. Jack listened, his eyes growing heavy with sleep and hope. "We'll be okay," Emma whispered, stroking his hair. "We have each other. We have our community." Outside, the stars shone brightly, unaffected by the technological silence that had fallen over the world. In the distance, a dog barked, an owl hooted. Life continued, unchanged by human technology, driven by something much deeper. The human spirit. Emma looked out the window, a small smile crossing her face. Whatever was coming, they would face it together, one day at a time, one moment at a time, with love, with hope, with unbreakable resilience. The morning after the blackout brought a new reality to Devon. Emma woke early, her mind already racing with plans. Jack still slept peacefully, and she took a moment to watch her son, remembering the strength that children can bring during difficult times. The village had transformed overnight. What was once a collection of separate homes now felt like one large interconnected family. People gathered in the central square, sharing information and resources. Robert Williams, the local farmer, had become an unexpected leader. His knowledge of agriculture and survival skills made him a crucial part of their new community. Emma packed a small bag with whatever useful items she could find. A first aid kit from her medical work, some preserved foods, matches, and extra blankets. Jack woke up and began helping without being asked, his young mind already understanding the importance of working together. "We need to organize," Robert was telling a group of neighbors. His weathered hands gestured as he spoke, pointing to the open fields surrounding the village. "These lands can feed us if we work together. No one has ever starved who knows how to grow food." The community began to divide tasks. Some would focus on gardening, others on water collection, and some on caring for the elderly and young. Emma volunteered to help with medical needs, using her limited but valuable nursing skills. Jack found himself working alongside the older children, learning quickly. They cleared a section of Robert's farm, preparing ground for vegetables. Old tools came out of sheds, hand plows, simple gardening equipment that had been forgotten in the age of machinery. Mrs. Peterson, who had always been known for her baking, now became a central figure in food preservation. She taught younger women how to can vegetables, how to make bread without electric mixers, how to stretch limited resources. By midday, a system began to emerge. The village had created a central storage area where food and supplies were shared. Equally, no one would go hungry, no one would be left behind. Emma watched as Jack carried a bucket of water, his small frame determined. She saw how the children were learning skills that generations before them had known, practical, life-sustaining abilities that technology had made seem unnecessary. "We'll need to be careful with water," Robert explained to the group. He showed them how to collect rainwater, how to purify it, how to use every drop wisely. "Nature provides, but we must be smart." The day was long but hopeful. As evening approached, the community gathered for a shared meal. It wasn't fancy, some vegetables, bread, a small amount of preserved meat, but it tasted like hope. Children played games that didn't require electricity. Stories were shared. The older residents spoke of times past, of how their parents and grandparents had survived difficult moments. These stories became lessons of resilience. Jack sat close to Emma, his eyes bright with excitement. "We're like a big family now," he whispered. She hugged him tight, understanding that something beautiful was emerging from the chaos. As night fell, they used candles and oil lamps. The darkness wasn't scary anymore. It was peaceful, filled with conversation and connection. People who had been strangers just days ago now felt like close relatives. Emma reflected on the day. They had faced uncertainty with courage. They had turned a potential disaster into an opportunity for community. The lack of technology had forced them to rely on each other, to remember human skills that had almost been forgotten. Robert approached Emma as the evening wound down. "We'll need everyone's help," he said simply, "especially people like you who understand how to care for others." The night was cool, but hearts were warm. Children fell asleep listening to stories of survival. Adults planned and hoped. In the center of the village, a new kind of society was being born, one built on cooperation, skill, and genuine human connection. As Emma tucked Jack into bed, using blankets carefully saved and shared, she knew they would be okay, not because of technology, but because of each other. The darkness outside was no longer something to fear. It was a canvas of possibility, waiting for them to paint their future, together. The abandoned school building stood like a beacon of hope in the village. What was once a forgotten structure now became the heart of their new community learning center. Windows were cleaned, old chairs repaired, and shelves dusted off to create a space of knowledge and survival. Emma walked with Jack, watching as the village elders began organizing their first community classes. Thomas Green, a retired carpenter with hands weathered by years of work, set up a woodworking station. Margaret Wilson, who had been a home economics teacher, prepared to teach food preservation and basic sewing. Knowledge is our most important resource now, Robert Williams told the gathered community. His voice was calm and steady, bringing comfort to those who listened. The children sat in the front rows, their eyes wide with curiosity and determination. Jack found himself drawn to the gardening lessons. Robert showed him how to prepare soil, understand plant cycles, and care for crops. The boy's small hands carefully planted seeds, learning that survival wasn't about technology, but about understanding nature. The Learning Center became more than just a school. It was a place of hope, of sharing, of rebuilding. Elderly residents who once felt forgotten now became the most valuable members of the community. They shared skills that had nearly been lost: how to make bread without machines, how to repair clothing, how to find water in dry times. Emma began teaching literacy classes in the evenings. Some adults who had never finished school now sat alongside children, learning to read and write. The classroom buzzed with excitement, with the sound of pencils scratching on paper, with the joy of discovery. Every skill matters, Emma would tell her students. What you learn today might save someone's life tomorrow. The village had transformed. Where once people had been strangers, now they were a family. Teenagers learned carpentry from Thomas. Children learned cooking from Margaret. Everyone had something to teach, something to share. Jack's passion for farming grew each day. He would spend hours with Robert, learning about crop rotation, natural pest control, and the delicate balance of growing food. The boy's excitement was infectious, inspiring other children to take an interest in sustainable living. As weeks passed, the community's skills expanded. They learned to make soap from natural ingredients. They discovered how to preserve food without refrigeration. They created tools from materials they found around them. Every challenge became an opportunity to learn and grow. The medical corner became Emma's domain. She taught basic first aid, how to clean wounds, how to identify dangerous infections. Her nursing background proved crucial. People learned to care for each other, to understand basic health principles. One afternoon, a young girl named Lucy discovered she had a talent for mechanics. Using old tools and broken machinery, she began to understand how things worked. Thomas and the other older men watched in amazement as she took apart and reassembled various devices. "We're not just surviving," Robert would often say. "We're creating something better than before." The community celebrated small victories: a successful harvest, a child learning to read, a new skill mastered. The lack of technology had forced them to reconnect with human potential in ways they never imagined. Jack's enthusiasm was a bright spot for everyone. He would tell stories of what he learned each day, his eyes shining with excitement. "Did you know," he would say to his mother, "that we can grow enough food in a small space to feed a family?" As winter approached, the community felt prepared. They had stored food, they had learned skills, they had each other. The abandoned school was now a living, breathing center of hope and knowledge. Emma watched her son plant seeds, repair a tool, help an older neighbor. She realized that what they were building was more than just a way to survive. They were creating a community based on mutual respect, continuous learning, and genuine human connection. The world outside might have gone dark, but in this small village, a bright future was taking root. One skill, one lesson, one shared moment at a time. Winter arrived with a harsh breath, bringing cold that cut through clothing and tested the community's resilience. Snow covered the fields, and food became more precious than gold. Emma watched the villagers huddle together, their faces marked by determination and worry. The Thompson cottage became a gathering point. Emma's ability to care for others transformed their small home into a center of hope. Jack helped prepare warm drinks while she tended to those who needed medical attention. One particularly cold evening, little Peter Collins fell seriously ill. The boy's parents, Mark and Sarah, looked terrified. Peter's fever burned high, and their limited medical supplies seemed inadequate. The entire village knew this was a moment that would define their community. Emma worked tirelessly. She used traditional remedies learned from older residents, combined with her medical knowledge. Margaret Wilson brought herbs she had carefully dried during autumn. Robert Williams collected extra blankets. Everyone contributed something. Jack became her assistant, bringing water, helping to keep Peter comfortable. The boy's determination matched his mother's. He would sit by Peter, telling stories, keeping his spirits up. The other children joined, taking turns supporting the Collins family. Days passed. The community shared their food, ensuring the Collins family had what they needed. No one complained about giving up their precious resources. Each person understood that survival meant caring for one another. Peter's recovery became a turning point. When the boy finally sat up, smiling weakly, the entire village celebrated. It wasn't just about saving one child. It was about proving their collective strength. The winter tested them in other ways. Food became scarce. The stored vegetables began to run low. Robert's careful planning of their agricultural resources became crucial. They learned to stretch every meal, to use every single piece of food. Emma organized a community kitchen. Those with skills cooked together, making sure everyone received a warm meal. Children helped prepare vegetables. Older residents shared cooking techniques that had been forgotten in easier times. Jack learned valuable lessons about compassion. He saw how the community supported each other. When an elderly neighbor struggled to collect firewood, Jack would be the first to help. When someone needed extra help, he was there. The coldest month brought unexpected challenges. A section of the village's storage building collapsed under heavy snow. Instead of seeing it as a disaster, the community viewed it as an opportunity to work together. Everyone helped clear the snow, rescue the stored food, and repair the building. Thomas Green led the reconstruction efforts. His carpentry skills proved invaluable. The younger men worked alongside him, learning how to repair and build. Women organized food preservation. Children helped in whatever way they could. Emma noticed how the challenges brought out the best in people. Conflicts that might have divided them in the past now seemed meaningless. They had learned that survival depended on unity, on understanding, on genuine human connection. One evening, as they gathered around shared meals, stories of survival were told. The older residents spoke of past hardships, of how communities had always found ways to overcome difficult times. These stories became lessons of hope. Peter's recovery became a symbol of their resilience. The boy, once weak and fevered, now played with other children. His parents looked at the community with tears of gratitude. They had been supported, loved, cared for. As the coldest days passed, something beautiful emerged. The village was no longer just a collection of houses. It was a living, breathing community. Each person understood their value. Each person knew they were important. Jack would often sit with his mother, watching the community work together. "We're stronger together," Emma would tell him, stroking his hair. The boy would nod, understanding a lesson more valuable than any technology could teach. The winter had tested them, but they had not just survived. They had grown stronger. Their compassion had become their greatest resource, their unity their most powerful tool. As snow began to melt and first signs of spring appeared, the village looked forward. They had faced the harshest challenge and emerged not just alive, but transformed. Hope, they had learned, was not something found. It was something created. Together, spring arrived softly, painting the Devon countryside with hope. The village that had survived the long, difficult winter now stood transformed. Where once there had been uncertainty, now a vibrant community thrived. Emma watched from her cottage as Jack worked in the community garden. Her son, now different from the boy she remembered just months ago, moved with purpose and confidence. He helped younger children plant seeds, demonstrating skills he had learned during their challenging journey. Robert Williams' farm had become the heart of their agricultural success. Rows of vegetables grew strong and healthy. The community had learned to work together, sharing knowledge and resources. What was once individual struggle was now collective achievement. Jack had become a symbol of their transformation. At just 9 years old, he could now identify plants, understand crop rotation, and help maintain the community's food supply. His enthusiasm inspired other children to learn and grow. The abandoned school continued to serve as their learning center. But now it was more than just a building. It was a testament to human resilience. Thomas Green had repaired its structure, making it stronger than before. Inside, generations learned from each other. Margaret Wilson's preservation techniques meant they had food stored carefully for future months. Her classes taught everyone how to make the most of their limited resources. Young and old worked together, sharing skills that might have been lost in the world of technology. Peter Collins, the boy who had nearly died during winter, now ran and played with other children. His recovery had become a story of hope, a reminder of their community's strength. His parents looked at the village with pride and gratitude. Emma continued her medical training, helping create a basic healthcare system. She taught first aid, learned traditional healing methods from older residents, and ensured everyone had basic medical knowledge. No one would be left behind. The village had created something remarkable. They had not just survived, they had reimagined how a community could function. Technology was no longer their master. Human connection, skills, and compassion had become their most valuable resources. Children learned differently now. Instead of staring at screens, they learned practical skills. Gardening, carpentry, cooking, first aid. These were their new subjects. Jack could now do more with his hands than most adults could before the Great Change. As spring turned to early summer, visitors began to hear about their unique community. Other villages started to ask how they had managed. Their story spread. A tale of human resilience, of finding strength in unity. Robert often spoke about their journey. "We didn't just survive," he would tell visitors. "We discovered something about ourselves. We learned that human potential is greater than any machine." Emma reflected on their transformation. The fear and uncertainty of those first days seemed like a distant memory. They had created a new way of living, built on mutual respect, continuous learning, and genuine care for one another. Jack represented their future. He understood the value of community, of working together, of caring for others. When he taught younger children how to plant seeds or repair tools, his eyes shone with a wisdom beyond his years. The village had gardens everywhere, every available space grew food. Children and adults worked side by side. They shared meals, shared knowledge, shared hope. Their boundaries had become blurred. They were one large, interconnected family. Thomas Green's workshop became a center of innovation. Using old tools and creative thinking, they repaired and created things they needed. Nothing was wasted. Everything had potential. Their resourcefulness knew no limits. As the sun set on their flourishing community, Emma watched Jack play with other children. They were laughing, teaching each other, growing together. The world around them had changed, but their spirit remained unbroken. Their story was more than survival. It was a testament to human potential. They had proven that when people come together, when they value each other's skills and support one another, they can overcome any challenge. The village stood as a beacon of hope, a reminder that true strength comes not from technology, but from the human heart, from compassion, from understanding, from the simple, powerful act of caring for one another. As night fell, the sounds of community filled the air. Laughter, conversation, the promise of another day of growth and unity. They had not just survived. They had created something beautiful.